Michael Bennett stood at the Thanksgiving table with one hand raised, smiling like he had been waiting months to say this. "Just give me 1 minute," he said, and Hannah, 7 months pregnant, stopped halfway to her dessert. Everyone turned toward him. Then Michael announced he was finally leaving his corporate job to start his own consulting firm. For a few seconds, Hannah forgot every late-night silence, every phone call he took outside, every time she had asked what was wrong and watched him say, "Nothing." Then Michael turned toward Lauren. He smiled. Hannah looked at Lauren, then back at her husband, and suddenly wished he had never asked everyone to listen. "Welcome to Greer Stories, my amazing family. Pull your chair a little closer, because sometimes the moment you wish had stayed private is the moment everyone else remembers forever." Hannah first noticed Michael because he was the only person at the dinner who stayed behind to help clean up. Not to impress anyone, he was already in the kitchen stacking plates while the host told him to leave them alone. Hannah watched him for a second, then said, "You know she's probably going to do those again." Michael looked down at the plates. "That's actually pretty likely." It made her laugh. A few days later he asked her to dinner. Their relationship did not move quickly. Hannah was careful with trust, and Michael was not the kind of man who made things easy by talking about his feelings. But he was consistent. When he said he would call, he called. When they argued, he sometimes needed time, but he came back to the conversation. Once, after a disagreement about money, Hannah expected him to avoid her for the rest of the night. Instead, he showed up at her apartment the next morning carrying coffee and the spreadsheet they had been arguing over. "You were right about the rent," he said. Hannah took the coffee. "That must have been painful." "Don't make me regret admitting it." Those things mattered to Hannah, not grand gestures, ordinary proof. Their life slowly filled with the kind of conversations couples have when they stop imagining each other as temporary, where they wanted to live, how much children would cost, which family they would visit for Thanksgiving, and Michael's consulting firm. He had wanted it for years. Sometimes after dinner, they sat at the kitchen table long after they should have gone to bed, talking through numbers neither of them had the energy to understand anymore. Michael would describe the kind of clients he wanted. Hannah would ask how he planned to find them. "I'll figure it out." "That's not a plan. It's the beginning of one." She challenged him when he became unrealistic. He accused her of trying to talk him out of it. "I'm trying to make sure you don't bankrupt us," she told him. "You have a very romantic way of supporting me." He laughed, but he listened. Over time, the dream stopped feeling like something Michael talked about and became something they talked about. How much would they need saved? How long could they survive without his salary? What happened if the first year went badly? Hannah never thought she was becoming his business partner. She was his wife, the person who would be living with the consequences if he ever took the risk. One night, after they had been married for a while, Michael reached across the kitchen table and took her hand. "When I finally do this," he said, "you'll know everything before anyone else." Hannah looked up. "Everything? Everything? Even the stuff you don't want to tell me? Especially that." He smiled. "You're the one who'll be living through the risk with me." Hannah squeezed his hand. "Then maybe save enough money first." Michael laughed and let go of her hand, but she remembered what he had said. She remembered it because she believed him. Lauren was part of their lives then, too. She had known Michael since childhood and knew his family well enough to walk into their house without knocking. She knew stories about him from years Hannah had never seen. At first, Hannah liked her. Lauren helped Michael choose the engagement ring. She was around during the wedding. She never acted territorial, and Michael never treated his friendship with Lauren like something Hannah needed to be worried about. Nothing was hidden. Nothing felt strange. The boundaries seemed obvious. Lauren was the lifelong friend. Hannah was the wife. And Hannah had never once imagined those two places would compete. Hannah was standing in the nursery doorway when Michael came home carrying a bottle of champagne. She looked at the bottle, then at him. "No way." Michael smiled. "I got it." She crossed the room before he could say anything else and threw her arms around him. For weeks they had been waiting to hear about the promotion. The extra money would make the baby easier to plan for. It would give them room to save. Maybe even bring Michael a little closer to the day his consulting firm stopped being something they only talked about at the kitchen table. Hannah stepped back. "I knew it." "You did not." "I absolutely did." Michael laughed and set the bottle on the counter. Hannah reached for her phone. "Wait, let me call Lauren." Michael glanced at her. "She already knows." Hannah stopped. Her phone was still in her hand. "She does?" "Yeah, I called her from the parking lot." Hannah looked at him. "You called Lauren?" "Yeah." Something in her expression changed. "Before me?" Michael paused. "I was going to call you, but you called her." He loosened his tie and walked toward the kitchen. She knew how stressed I was about it. I know. Hannah followed him with her eyes. I just thought you'd call me first. Michael turned around. I was excited. And your first thought was Lauren? Hannah, what? He opened the refrigerator and reached for a bottle of water. She's been there for every major thing in my life. Hannah was quiet for a moment. I thought I was supposed to be one of those people now. Michael looked at her. You are. Then why did you call her? His expression tightened. I don't know, it was automatic. Hannah stared at him. Automatic? He took a drink. Yeah, she knew how badly I wanted this, I just called her. For a second, Hannah said nothing. Then she looked at the unopened champagne. Okay. Michael seemed relieved. That night he fell asleep before midnight. Hannah lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling and hearing one word over and over. Automatic. She told herself it was only a phone call, and by morning she had almost convinced herself. The promotion changed Michael's schedule before it changed anything else. He came home later. He answered emails during dinner. Some nights, Hannah would hear him moving around downstairs long after she had gone to bed. She tried not to complain. Michael was working more. That made sense. He wanted to provide, especially with the baby coming. At least, that was how Hannah understood it. Then she started noticing what happened when work went badly. One evening, Hannah was folding tiny baby clothes on the couch when Michael came through the front door. He dropped his keys into the bowl by the wall and sat beside her without taking off his coat. Long day? She asked. Yeah. She waited. What happened? Michael rubbed his face. Nothing. I'm fine. His phone lit up on the coffee table. Lauren. Michael looked at the screen. Then he picked up the phone and walked toward the kitchen. Hannah watched him go. 20 minutes later, he came back. He looked lighter somehow. Hannah held up one of the baby's socks. So? Michael glanced at it. So what? What happened at work? Oh. He sat down. Just the usual stuff. Hannah looked at him. Anything I can help with? No, I handled it. She nodded. But he had not handled it alone. At first, Hannah did not know that was becoming a pattern. She only noticed small things. Lauren knew when Michael was worried about a client. Lauren knew when he was frustrated with his boss. Lauren knew when he was thinking about leaving the company. Hannah usually learned those things later, often without Michael realizing he had never told her. Every explanation made sense. Lauren had known him for years. Work was stressful. He was tired when he got home. And Hannah was tired too, so she let the moments go. Then one Saturday afternoon, Lauren came over for lunch. Michael was upstairs answering emails when Lauren stepped into the kitchen beside Hannah. He still hasn't made up his mind about Chicago, has he? Lauren said. Hannah looked up from the salad she was making. Chicago? Lauren stopped. For half a second, neither of them spoke. The office transfer, Lauren said. Hannah waited. Lauren's expression changed. Oh, what office transfer? Lauren set down the glass she was holding. I thought Michael told you. Hannah kept looking at her. He hasn't. Lauren glanced toward the stairs. He was considering it a few weeks ago. Nothing serious, I guess. A few weeks ago? Lauren looked uncomfortable now. He was stressed about it. I told him he should at least think through what it would mean before saying no. Hannah slowly put the knife down. The baby shifted inside her. Michael talked to you about moving to Chicago? Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. I'm sorry. I really thought you knew. Before Hannah could answer, Michael came downstairs. He smiled when he saw them. What? Neither woman said anything. Michael looked from Lauren to Hannah. Lauren finally said, I mentioned Chicago. His smile disappeared. Hannah watched his face change, not because she had asked him a difficult question, because Lauren had told her. Hannah looked at Lauren. Then she looked at Michael. Suddenly the phone call didn't feel small anymore. Michael stood in the kitchen, looking at his wife. Hannah. She picked up the knife again. When were you going to tell me? Michael said nothing, and that silence stayed between them long after Lauren went home. Hannah stopped asking Michael how his day had been. Not completely. She still asked when he walked through the door. She still wanted to know whether he had eaten, whether the promotion was settling down, whether something was wrong when he barely spoke through dinner. But she had learned that the wrong question, asked at the wrong time, could change the whole evening. One night, Michael came home almost an hour late. Hannah was sitting at the kitchen table with an unpaid bill in front of her and one hand resting on her stomach. You okay? She asked. Michael dropped his keys into the bowl by the door. Yeah. She looked at him. You sure? He pulled out a chair. I said I'm fine. The sharpness in his voice made her pause. I was just asking. I know. But he did not sound like he knew. Hannah folded the bill in half and set it aside. For a few minutes, neither of them said anything. Then Michael looked over. Nothing. You're doing that thing again. Hannah blinked. What thing? Where you say nothing, but it's obviously something. She leaned back in her chair. Michael, you just snapped at me for asking if you were okay. Because every time I walk in the door now, you're waiting for me to explain myself. That's not true. It feels like it. Hannah looked at him. I miss talking to you. Michael said nothing. The words seemed to surprise him as much as they surprised her. His expression changed slightly, but instead of moving toward her, he looked away. I talked to you. About what? He rubbed his forehead. And somehow before either of them understood what they were arguing about, they were arguing about everything else. His hours, her mood, the baby, the house, the things they were both too tired to finish. By the time Michael went upstairs, neither of them had said what they actually meant. Later that night, Michael called Lauren. He told her Hannah had been irritated lately. Lauren was quiet for a moment. She's 7 months pregnant, she said. I'm guessing her life doesn't exactly feel easy right now. Michael gave a tired laugh. I know that. But, I come home, and I already know I'm walking into something. Lauren did not tell him Hannah was wrong. She did not criticize her. She just listened, while Michael explained things he had not managed to say to his wife. By the end of the call, he felt calmer. The next afternoon, Lauren stopped by while Michael was upstairs. Hannah was standing at the kitchen counter when Lauren walked in. You look tired, Lauren said. I am. Lauren gave her a sympathetic smile. I figured after last night. Hannah looked up. Lauren's smile faded. What do you mean? The argument. For a second, Lauren said nothing. Hannah watched her face change. Then Lauren glanced toward the stairs. Oh, Hannah's voice lowered. Michael told you about last night? Lauren looked uncomfortable. He just needed to talk. About what? Lauren hesitated. He said you told him you missed talking to him. Hannah went still. That was not how she had described their argument to anyone. She had not described it to anyone. Lauren set down the glass she was holding. I'm sorry, I thought you knew. Before Hannah could answer, Michael came downstairs. He smiled when he saw Lauren. Then he noticed Hannah. What? Neither woman answered. Michael looked from Lauren to Hannah. Lauren finally said, I mentioned last night. His smile disappeared. Hannah turned toward him. You told her? Michael frowned. I needed someone to talk to. Why her? His face tightened. Seriously? Yes. Hannah, she's my friend. I know that. Then what's the problem? Hannah looked at him. You tell her things about us before you and I have even finished talking about them. That's not what happened. Then what happened? Michael crossed his arms. I needed to clear my head. With Lauren. Why does it matter who I talk to? Hannah stared at him. Why is it always Lauren? Michael's expression changed. There it was, the question she had been trying not to ask, and immediately he heard something else. So now I can't talk to my friend?
That is not what I said. It sounds like jealousy.
Hannah looked at him for a long moment. No, she said quietly. It sounds like I'm asking you a question. Michael said nothing. Hannah picked up the bill she had been trying to pay. She folded it once. Then again, Michael watched her. But he still didn't answer. Hannah heard Lauren laugh before she heard Michael's voice. She was halfway down the stairs when she stopped. The baby had kicked her awake, and she had come downstairs for water. The kitchen light was off, but Michael was sitting at the dining table with his laptop closed in front of him, his phone pressed to his ear. No, I'm serious, he said, smiling. I haven't told her that part. Hannah stood still. Then Lauren laughed again. Michael leaned back in his chair. Because she'll start worrying. Hannah looked toward the table. For a second she thought about walking in. Instead, she stayed where she was. Michael lowered his voice. I just need to figure out what I'm doing first. There was a pause. Then he said, Yeah, I know. Hannah went back upstairs without getting the water. The next morning, Michael was in the shower when Hannah came into the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator, then closed it again. When Michael walked in a few minutes later, she was still standing there. You were talking to Lauren last night. Michael reached for a mug. Yeah. What haven't you told me? He looked at her. What? You said you hadn't told me something because I'd start worrying. Michael stared at her for a moment. You heard that? I was on the stairs. His face changed. It was nothing. Hannah laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You keep saying that. Hannah, what is it? Michael set the mug down. I was talking about work. What about work? He rubbed his jaw. I don't know yet. Know what? Michael looked away. Then he said, I've been thinking about leaving the company. Hannah stared at him. For your firm? Maybe. The word landed between them. Hannah put one hand against the counter. Michael, I said maybe. How long have you been thinking about this? He hesitated. A while. And Lauren knows? Michael looked at her. Yeah, I talked to her about it. Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, Michael was watching her carefully. What? She shook her head. No, nothing. Don't do that. Do what? Say nothing when you obviously have something to say. Hannah looked at him. You told me once that when you were ready to do this, I'd know everything before anyone else. Michael's expression changed. This isn't the same thing. Why? Because nothing has happened yet. But you told Lauren. She's someone I talk things through with. The words were calm, almost casual. That made them worse. Hannah looked toward the dining room. The night before, Michael had been sitting there, smiling into his phone while discussing a decision he had never mentioned to her. You talk things through with her, Hannah said. Michael frowned. I talk to you too. After you've already decided what you think. That's not fair. No? Hannah, I can't run every thought in my head by you the second I have it. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? She looked at him. That was the problem. She was no longer sure how to explain it without hearing herself sound unreasonable, so she picked up her glass. I don't know. Michael waited. Hannah walked past him. The rest of the day, neither of them brought it up again. Michael seemed to take that as a good sign. By evening, he was talking normally. He asked Hannah what she wanted for dinner. He told her about something ridiculous one of his coworkers had said. Hannah answered when she needed to. Nothing was resolved. But nothing was openly wrong either. Later, she went upstairs early. Michael stayed downstairs. Hannah lay awake for a while, listening to the quiet of the house. Then she heard Michael's phone ring. A few seconds passed. His footsteps moved toward the back door. Hannah closed her eyes. She could hear the low murmur of his voice through the open window, though not clearly enough to make out every word. Then Lauren spoke. Hannah heard Michael laugh softly. Yeah, he said. I finally told her. A pause. Hannah opened her eyes. Another pause. Then Michael exhaled. Not great. Lauren said something Hannah couldn't hear. Michael answered more quietly. I don't know. She thinks I'm shutting her out. Hannah went completely still. For a moment she waited for him to say something else. Something that belonged to her. Something he had not already carried outside the marriage. But Michael kept talking. Hannah turned onto her side and faced the wall. That afternoon she had told Michael she did not know what she was asking for. Downstairs, Michael was telling Lauren what he thought she meant. And for the first time, Hannah understood that even her reaction to being left out had become something Michael took to Lauren. Michael noticed the change before Hannah said anything about it. She stopped waiting up for him. At first, it happened by accident. One night, she fell asleep on the couch before he got home. Another night, she went upstairs after dinner because her back hurt. By the end of the week, she was getting into bed when she was tired instead of checking the clock. Michael noticed. You going to bed already? Hannah stood in the hallway, one hand resting against the wall. I'm tired. It's 9. I know. He looked at her for a second. Usually she would have waited for him. She would have stayed downstairs while he answered emails. She would have asked how his day went. Sometimes they would sit together without talking, both of them too tired to do much else. Now Hannah just nodded toward him. Good night. Michael watched her walk upstairs. A few days later, he came home carrying Chinese takeout. Hannah was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through a stack of baby clothes Lauren had dropped off earlier that afternoon. Michael set the bag down. Thought we could eat together. Hannah looked at him. Okay. He waited. That was it. No smile. No question about his day. Michael pulled out a chair. Everything okay? Hannah looked down at the tiny shirt in her hands. Yeah. He frowned. You sure? She folded the shirt. I'm fine. Michael stared at her. Hannah felt the silence between them. Then she said, What? You're doing that thing again. She looked up. What thing? Where you say you're fine, but you're obviously not. For a moment, Hannah just looked at him. Then she folded another shirt. You've been saying you're fine for months. Michael leaned back in his chair. Hannah. She stopped folding. What? Are you still upset about the other night? Hannah looked toward the counter. No. He watched her. That didn't sound convincing. She nodded. You're right. Michael waited. Hannah put the baby clothes aside. I am upset. His expression tightened. Okay. But I don't want to have this conversation with you right now. Why not? She looked at him, because she already knew where it would go. Michael would ask what was wrong. She would try to explain. He would hear jealousy where she meant loneliness. He would become frustrated. And later, somehow, Lauren would know about it too. Hannah pushed her chair back. "I'm tired." Michael stood. "Hannah, don't do that." "Do what? Walk away every time we have a problem." Hannah stopped. Then she slowly turned toward him. "Every time we have a problem?" Michael rubbed his face. "That's not what I meant." "No, it is, Hannah." "You haven't talked to me in days." Michael went quiet. The words seemed to catch him off guard. Hannah looked at him. "I know." He frowned. "Then why?" For a second she said nothing, not because she was trying to punish him, because she was trying to find a way to explain something she had spent months failing to explain. Finally she said, "Because every time I tried, I ended up feeling like I was talking to you and Lauren." Michael's face changed. "That's not fair." Hannah nodded once. "Maybe not." He stared at her. She did not argue. She did not ask him to explain. That unsettled him more than anger would have. "Hannah, Lauren and I are friends." "I know. She's someone I talk to. I know." "Then why are you acting like—" "I'm not acting like anything." Michael stopped. Hannah picked up one of the tiny shirts and folded it carefully. Then she placed it on top of the others. "I just don't want to be part of that anymore." Michael stared at her. "What does that mean?" Hannah looked up. "It means I'm tired of trying to have a marriage with someone who keeps bringing a third person into the parts of it that are supposed to be ours." His mouth opened, then closed. For once, Michael did not immediately have an answer. Hannah stood. "I'm going to bed." "Hannah." She looked at him. Michael seemed to be waiting for her to say more, to get angry, to cry, to ask him to promise something. She did none of those things. "Good night, Michael." She walked upstairs. Later, Michael came into the bedroom quietly. Hannah was lying on her side, facing away from him. He stood there for a moment. Then he changed and got into bed. Usually, Hannah would move closer in her sleep. Sometimes she would reach for his hand without waking. That night, she didn't move. Michael lay beside her in the dark. Hannah was awake. He didn't know. Hannah asked Michael to dinner on a Wednesday night. Not somewhere expensive. Just the small Italian restaurant they used to go to before work, pregnancy, and everything else had made eating out feel like something they had to schedule. Michael looked surprised when she mentioned it. "Dinner? Yeah." "Just us?" Hannah looked at him. "Yes, just us." For a second he smiled. "Okay." That evening Michael arrived home early. Hannah noticed. She had spent so much time feeling disappointed by him lately that the effort almost caught her off guard. At the restaurant, they sat across from each other with a basket of bread between them. For the first few minutes they talked normally. The baby had been moving more. Michael complained about a meeting. Hannah laughed at something he said. And for a little while it felt easy. That was what made her finally bring it up. "I don't want to fight tonight." Michael's hand stopped near his glass. "Okay, I just want to talk." His expression changed, not dramatically, but Hannah saw it, the small tightening around his eyes. The way he leaned back before she had even said what was wrong. She looked down at the table. "I miss you." Michael was quiet. "I'm right here." "I know." He waited. Hannah rubbed her thumb against the edge of her napkin. "That's kind of the problem." Michael looked away. She had tried to choose her words carefully. She had tried not to mention Lauren. Not yet. "I feel like there are parts of your life I don't get to see anymore," Hannah said. "And every time I try to talk about them, you act like I'm accusing you of something." "I don't." "You do." Michael exhaled slowly. "Hannah, I don't know what you want me to say." She looked at him. That was the sentence she had started expecting. Not an answer, not a question, a wall. "I want to understand what's happening with you." "Nothing is happening." "Michael." He rubbed his forehead. And just like that, the easy dinner was gone. Hannah sat back in her chair. She could have pushed harder. She could have mentioned the late-night calls, the conversations Lauren seemed to know about before she did, the way Michael had started going to someone else whenever life became difficult. Instead, she asked quietly, "Are you happy?" Michael looked at her. "With us?" "With your life." He did not answer right away, and Hannah hated herself for noticing that he seemed to have an answer for almost everything else. "I don't know," he finally said. She nodded. That was more honest than she had expected. Michael looked down at the table. "Work is a lot right now." "I know. The promotion hasn't been what I thought it would be. I know. And I've got this idea for the firm sitting in the back of my mind all the time." Hannah waited. For one brief moment she felt him coming toward her, not physically, but emotionally. She didn't interrupt, didn't ask another question. She just listened. Michael looked at her. Something in his face softened. Then his phone buzzed against the table. Both of them looked down. "Lauren." Michael's eyes stayed on the screen for a second too long. Hannah said nothing. The phone stopped. Michael turned it face down. Then he leaned back in his chair. The moment was gone. Hannah waited for him to continue. He didn't. "You can talk to me," she said quietly. Michael nodded. "I know." But the words landed differently than they once had. They finished dinner without another argument. That should have felt like progress. Instead, Hannah went home with the strange feeling that she had spent 2 hours sitting across from her husband while both of them carefully avoided the things she had come to say. Later that night, Michael stood in the kitchen with his phone in his hand. Hannah was upstairs. He stared at Lauren's name for a moment, then he called her. When she answered, Michael let out a breath. She wanted to talk. Lauren was quiet. About what? Us, work, everything, I guess. And? Michael leaned against the counter. I don't know. There was a pause. Then he started talking. About how tired Hannah seemed. About how every conversation lately felt like it was leading somewhere he didn't know how to go. About the pressure of the baby coming. About work. About the firm. Lauren listened. She asked questions, simple ones. The kind that gave Michael room to keep talking without making him feel like he had to solve anything immediately. Michael stayed downstairs long after the call should have ended. Upstairs, Hannah lay awake beside the empty space where he should have been. She heard his voice downstairs. She did not need to hear the words. The next morning, Michael came upstairs looking lighter. Hannah noticed. He kissed her cheek before getting dressed. Morning. Morning. Michael moved around the room, humming quietly to himself. Hannah watched him for a moment. Did you sleep? He looked over. Yeah. A small smile crossed his face. Better? Hannah nodded. Then she looked away. She did not ask what had made him feel better. She already knew. Lauren had become the place Michael went when he could not finish a conversation with his wife, and Hannah was beginning to understand what that meant. The next time Lauren came over, Hannah tried to act like nothing had changed. She lasted 20 minutes. Michael was in the kitchen opening a bottle of wine, while Lauren sat across from Hannah on the couch. The television was on low. Neither woman was watching it. Lauren looked at Hannah's stomach. How are you feeling? Fine, Lauren smiled. You always say that when you're not. Hannah looked at her. Lauren's smile faded slightly. What? For a moment Hannah said nothing. Then she asked, How do you know that? Lauren blinked. What do you mean? When I'm not fine. Lauren shifted on the couch. I just know you. Hannah looked toward the kitchen. Michael was still searching through a drawer. Then she looked back at Lauren. No, you don't. The words came out more quietly than Hannah intended. Lauren went still. Hannah immediately regretted saying them, not because it wasn't true, because she knew what would happen next. Lauren would become uncomfortable, Michael would come back, and somehow Hannah would end up looking like the person who had created the problem. So she reached for her glass. I'm sorry. Lauren watched her. You don't have to apologize. Hannah nodded, but neither of them spoke. A few minutes later, Michael returned. He looked between them. What happened? Nothing, Hannah said. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. Michael frowned. Hannah picked up the remote. Nothing happened. He kept looking at them. Then Lauren stood. I'm going to use the bathroom. The moment she disappeared down the hall, Michael turned to Hannah. What did you say to her? Hannah stared at him. Why do you assume I said something? Because something happened. Maybe she's just uncomfortable. With what? Hannah looked at him. That was the question. Michael had no idea. Or maybe he did and did not want to know. Nothing, Hannah said. Michael exhaled. Hannah. She looked away. He lowered his voice. Can you please just tell me what happened? For the first time, Hannah felt something inside her give way. Not anger, not even sadness, just exhaustion. She looked back at him. Why? Michael frowned. What do you mean, why? Because if I tell you, are we going to talk about it? Of course. Or are you going to call Lauren after she leaves and explain to her why I'm upset? Michael stared at her. His face changed. Hannah. No, I'm asking. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Michael rubbed the back of his neck. You're making this bigger than it is. Hannah looked down. There it was again. The sentence that turned every feeling into something she had exaggerated. She nodded once. Okay. Michael's expression tightened. Don't do that. What? That? She looked at him. The way you shut down. Hannah almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because suddenly she understood something she had been too hurt to see before. Michael wanted access to her feelings. He just did not want the responsibility of staying inside them. Hannah, where are you going? Outside. It's cold. I'll be fine. She walked past him and opened the back door. Michael called her name. She didn't turn around. The cold air hit her face. For a moment, Hannah stood on the patio with both hands resting against the railing. Behind her, the house was quiet. Then she heard the door open. She expected Michael. It was Lauren. Hannah didn't look at her. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Finally, Lauren said, "I didn't know you felt like that." Hannah closed her eyes. I know Lauren stepped closer. "He talks to me because I'm there." Hannah turned toward her. "No." Lauren looked at her. "He talks to you because he leaves me and comes looking for you." Lauren went quiet. Hannah swallowed. "And every time I try to talk to him about it, somehow that becomes something the two of you talk about too." Lauren looked down. For once, she did not have an answer. The silence between them changed. Hannah watched her. Lauren slowly lifted her eyes. "I thought he was telling you." Hannah's face went still. "What?" "The things we talk about." Lauren hesitated. "I thought he was telling you." For a second, Hannah could only stare at her. Then she gave a small, tired laugh. "That's the problem." Lauren said nothing. "You keep thinking he is." Lauren's expression changed, and Hannah saw it. Not defensiveness, not anger. Something closer to realization. For months, Lauren had been hearing Michael talk about work, the baby, his fears, the firm, the marriage, and all that time she had apparently believed Hannah was hearing the same things, or at least enough of them. Hannah looked away. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this." Lauren remained quiet. Behind them, the kitchen door opened. Michael's voice came from inside. "Lauren?" Neither woman moved. Then Hannah turned toward the house. Lauren followed. Michael was standing in the kitchen. He looked from one of them to the other. "What happened?" Hannah said nothing. Michael looked at Lauren. Lauren looked at Hannah. For a moment, the room was completely still. Then Lauren spoke. "She's right." Michael frowned. "About what?" Lauren's face tightened. Hannah stood near the stairs watching him. Lauren took a breath. "About all of it." Michael looked confused. "Hannah thinks I—" "No," Lauren interrupted. Michael stopped. It was the first time Hannah had ever heard Lauren cut him off. Lauren looked directly at him. "She's not upset because I'm your friend." Michael stared at her. Lauren swallowed. "She's upset because you keep coming to me with things you should be talking to your wife about." The room went silent. Michael looked toward Hannah. She was already standing on the first step. "Hannah?" She stopped. For once, he did not sound irritated. He sounded uncertain. She turned slightly. Michael opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Hannah looked at him, then at Lauren. Neither of them spoke, and in the silence that followed, Hannah understood something she had not expected to feel. For the first time, she was not the only person in the room who could see what had been happening. She turned and continued upstairs. Behind her, nobody said a word. Michael did not bring up Lauren again that night. Hannah noticed. She had expected him to. She expected anger or defensiveness or another explanation about friendship and trust. Instead, when he finally came upstairs, he moved around the bedroom quietly. Hannah was sitting up in bed, reading without turning the page. Michael changed, turned off the lamp on his side, and got in beside her. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "Are you awake?" Hannah kept looking at the book. "Yes." Another pause. "What Lauren said earlier." Hannah waited. Michael let out a breath. "I don't think she understood everything." Hannah slowly lowered the book. Michael was staring at the ceiling. What didn't she understand? He looked at her. She was hearing one side. Hannah was quiet. Whose side? Michael frowned. "Hannah." "No, whose side?" He looked away. Hannah closed the book. "Michael, when you talk to Lauren about us, what do you tell her?" "I talk to her." "I know. So what? So do you tell her when you're wrong?" His face tightened. "That's not the point." Hannah looked at him. "No, I think it is." Michael sat up slightly. "Why are we doing this right now?" The question landed harder than she expected, not because she wanted another argument, because even now, after everything that had happened downstairs, Michael still seemed to believe the problem was the timing of the conversation. She placed the book on the nightstand. "We're doing this because I don't know what else is left to do." Michael went still. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hannah continued before she lost the nerve. "I've tried talking to you. I know." "No, you don't." His eyes lifted to hers. "I've tried being angry. I've tried being calm. I've tried saying nothing. I've tried asking you to listen. I've tried not mentioning Lauren at all." Michael said nothing. And every time it gets difficult, you leave the conversation with me and finish it somewhere else. Michael looked away. That's what I've been trying to tell you. For the first time, he didn't interrupt. He just sat there. Then his phone lit up on the nightstand. Hannah saw the name before Michael reached for it. Lauren. Michael picked up the phone. He stared at the screen. Then he turned it over. Hannah looked away. Michael noticed. What? Nothing. Hannah. She shook her head. No, that's good. He frowned. What is? You didn't answer. Michael stared at her. The words had not come out the way she intended. There was no warmth in them, no relief, only exhaustion. I wasn't going to. I know. Then why did you say it like that? Hannah pulled the blanket higher over herself. Because I shouldn't have to be grateful that you let one call ring. Michael's face changed. That time he understood. Not all of it, but enough. He sat quietly beside her. Then after a while he said, I don't know how this got so bad. Hannah turned toward him. For months she had wanted him to ask that question. She had imagined answering it. She had rehearsed the words during sleepless nights and long afternoons when Lauren's name appeared on Michael's phone. Now the question was finally there, and Hannah wasn't sure she had the strength to answer it again. You really don't know? Michael looked at her. No. Hannah held his gaze. Then she asked, Do you really want to know? Michael's face changed. For the first time that night, he looked uncertain. Hannah waited. The phone buzzed again. Neither of them looked at it. Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. Hannah's stomach tightened. She had spent months believing that if she could only make Michael see what was happening, everything might finally change. Now he was looking directly at her. The answer was sitting between them. All he had to do was say he wanted to hear it. Michael stared at the dark ceiling. I don't know if I'm ready to hear it. Hannah went completely still. The phone buzzed once more. Neither of them moved. By Thanksgiving, Michael had become easier to live with. That was the part Hannah had not expected. He was more careful now. He came home earlier when he could. He asked how she was feeling. He touched her stomach when the baby moved. Sometimes, when they were sitting together after dinner, he would start to say something, then stop. Hannah noticed, but she had stopped helping him find the words. Thanksgiving was at Michael's parents' house in Naperville. By the time Hannah and Michael arrived, both families were already moving through the rooms. Children ran between the living room and the kitchen. Football played somewhere in the background. People talked over one another while passing dishes across the table. Hannah made an effort. She hugged Michael's mother. She laughed when someone told an old family story. She let people fuss over her pregnancy without telling anyone how tired she really was. She did not want her marriage problems to become public. Then Lauren arrived. For a second, Hannah and Lauren stood facing each other in the hallway. Hi, Lauren said. Hi. Lauren looked at her stomach. You look good. Thank you. Neither woman said anything else. Michael appeared beside them a moment later, smiling too easily. Everybody's already asking about the baby, he said. Hannah looked at him. I figured. Lauren gave a small laugh. The moment passed, but Hannah felt it stay with her. Dinner was warm and crowded. For a while, it was almost pleasant. Hannah sat beside Michael while his father argued with her uncle about football. Her mother kept telling her to eat more. Someone brought out dessert before half the table was finished with dinner. Then Michael stood. He tapped his glass lightly with a spoon. The room gradually quieted. I need a minute. People smiled. Hannah looked up from her plate. Michael looked happier than she had seen him in months, not relieved, not careful, happy. He looked around the table. I've been waiting to tell everybody this. His mother leaned forward. Michael smiled. I'm leaving my job. The room erupted. Questions came from every direction. His father started laughing. His mother covered her mouth. Michael held up both hands. Wait, wait. Everyone settled again. Hannah was smiling. She could not help it. Michael looked directly at her. Then he said, I'm opening my own consulting firm. For one brief second, Hannah forgot everything. Lauren, the late-night calls, the unfinished conversations, the months of distance. This was their dream. Years earlier, Michael had sat across from her at their kitchen table and talked about the day he would stop making other people rich and build something of his own. They had talked about the money they would need to save, the risks, the years it might take. Hannah had believed she would be beside him when it finally happened. She looked at him now, proud despite herself. Then Michael turned toward Lauren and smiled. Hannah's smile disappeared. I also need to thank someone. The room turned toward Lauren. Lauren looked down. Michael continued. Lauren was there from the beginning. Hannah's fingers tightened around her fork. Michael was still smiling. She helped me shape the business model. She challenged some of my assumptions when I was getting ahead of myself. Lauren shook her head, slightly embarrassed. Michael laughed. She helped me look at the market. She helped me think through which clients made sense. The room listened. Hannah didn't move. Michael leaned one hand against the back of his chair. There were nights I was ready to forget the whole thing. Hannah looked at him. She kept bringing me back to why I wanted to do it in the first place. Lauren's face softened. Michael looked at her. Then he laughed. Honestly, this wouldn't have happened without her. The room applauded. Hannah didn't. Michael kept talking. Lauren is going to be the COO. Something inside Hannah went completely still. The room was congratulating him. His mother was crying. Someone reached across the table to shake Lauren's hand, but Hannah could barely hear any of it. The timeline began arranging itself in her mind. While she had been pregnant, while she had been asking Michael to talk to her, while she had been lying awake beside him, wondering what had happened to the man who used to tell her everything. He had been building the firm, with Lauren, not carrying an idea around in his head, not waiting for the right time, not putting the dream aside because life was complicated, building it, the business model, the clients, the financial risks, the future. Hannah looked at Lauren. Lauren was still receiving congratulations. Then Hannah looked at Michael. He turned toward her, smiling, proud, as if he had just shared the best news of his life with the person who mattered most. He reached for her hand. Are you proud of me? Hannah looked down at his hand, then at Lauren, then back at her husband. You made the right choice. Michael smiled. He thought she meant the company. Hannah slowly pulled her hand away. Her fingers moved to her wedding ring. Michael noticed. The smile disappeared from his face. Hannah's fingers closed around her wedding ring. Michael saw it. His chair moved slightly against the floor. Hannah. She looked at him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Around them, the room was still celebrating. Michael's father was asking someone about the new firm. His mother had moved around the table to hug Lauren. A cousin was already talking about how proud everyone was of Michael. Nobody had noticed Hannah's hand. Not yet. Michael lowered his voice. What are you doing? Hannah looked down at the ring. She had worn it every day since Michael put it on her finger. Through their first apartment, through his promotions, through arguments that lasted until 2 a.m, through the months when they were trying to have a baby. She twisted it once, then slowly pulled it over her knuckle. Michael stopped breathing. Hannah. This time people heard him. His mother's conversation faded. Someone looked toward them. Hannah placed the ring beside her untouched dessert. The sound it made against the plate was small, but suddenly the entire room was quiet. Michael stared at the ring, then at Hannah. What are you doing? Hannah looked at him. You made the right choice. His face tightened. Hannah, what does that mean? She glanced toward Lauren. Lauren had gone completely still. Then Hannah looked back at Michael. It means I think I'm finally accepting the choice you've been making for a long time. No one at the table moved. Michael shook his head. No. Hannah waited. No what? That's not what this is. Her eyes stayed on him. Then what is it? Michael looked around the table, at his parents, at Hannah's family, at Lauren. The pride that had filled the room a few minutes earlier was gone. I was talking about the company. I know. Then why are you doing this? Hannah gave a small nod, as if she had expected that question. Michael had spent months making choices she had been trying to understand, and now, standing in front of everyone, he still could not see them. You really want me to explain it here? Michael's face changed. Hannah, please. She looked down at the ring, then back at him. No. Michael leaned closer. Don't do this. The words came out quietly, not angry, afraid. For the first time, Hannah saw it. Michael looked afraid, not of being embarrassed, not of explaining himself, but of losing her. Hannah's eyes filled. She blinked once. I didn't do this, Michael. He went still. I kept trying to tell you. His mouth opened. She continued before he could interrupt. I told you I missed you. Michael looked down. I asked you to talk to me. His face tightened. I told you I didn't know what was happening to us. The room remained silent, and every time it got difficult, you left me there. Michael's eyes lifted. You didn't leave the house. Hannah almost smiled. There was no anger in it, only disbelief. No, she looked toward Lauren. You just found somewhere else to go. Lauren looked down. Michael's face changed. Hannah saw the moment he understood what she meant, or at least enough of it. He reached toward her across the table. Hannah. She pulled her chair back. The sound made several people flinch. Michael stood immediately. Hannah, please. She stood too. One hand moved to the curve of her stomach. The other stayed at her side. She looked at him. For 1 second she saw the man she had married, the man who had once sat across from her at their kitchen table and told her every impossible dream he had, and that was what hurt the most. She had not stopped believing in him. She had stopped knowing where she belonged in the life he was building. Hannah picked up her coat. Michael came around the table. "Can we talk somewhere?" She looked at him. "We've been talking for months." "Hannah." "No." Her voice did not rise. That made Michael stop. Hannah slipped her coat over her shoulders. She could hear her mother quietly saying her name behind her. Michael's mother was crying. Someone shifted in their chair. Lauren still had not spoken. Hannah reached for the front door. Michael followed her. "Hannah." She opened it, then stepped outside. The door closed behind her. "Hannah!" Michael's voice came from behind her. She kept walking. The front door opened behind her. "Hannah, please." She stopped only when she heard his footsteps. Then the door closed. Hannah turned. Michael stood a few feet away. Inside he had looked frightened. Out here, with no family watching and no one waiting for him to explain himself, he looked lost. "What are you doing?" he asked. Hannah stared at him. The question almost made her laugh. Not because it was funny, because she had spent months trying to understand what he was doing. She looked down at her empty hand, then back at him. "What do you think I'm doing?" Michael took a step closer. "Taking your ring off in front of everyone? Walking out like that?" Hannah nodded slowly. "Yes." "Why?" There it was again, the same question. Not cruel, not angry, just painfully unaware. Hannah looked back toward the house. Both of their families were inside. Lauren was inside. Everyone who had just watched Michael announce the future he had built. She turned back to him. "Do you really not understand?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I understand you're upset." "No. Hannah, you understand that I'm upset." He stopped. "That's not the same thing." For once, Hannah did not look away. "I have been telling you something was wrong for months." "I know. No, you don't." His shoulders dropped. Hannah took a breath. She was tired. Not of the evening, of the conversation, of having to keep translating the same pain into words Michael could finally recognize. "You kept saying Lauren was just someone you trusted." Michael said nothing. "You said she helped you think." Still nothing. "You said I was making it bigger than it was." Michael looked away. Hannah's voice remained quiet. "And then tonight you stood in front of both our families and thanked her for helping you build the life you used to talk to me about." Michael's face changed. "That's not fair." Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she looked directly at him. "What part isn't fair?" Michael struggled for an answer. "She didn't take anything from you." Hannah went still. The hurt on her face became impossible to hide. Michael saw it immediately, and Hannah knew he wished he could take the words back, but she had heard them. "She didn't have to." Michael stared at her. Hannah's voice shook. "I kept handing it over," he frowned. "What?" "Myself." The word came out quietly. She swallowed. "Every time I told you I was scared, or lonely, or worried about us, I was trying to let you back in. Michael didn't move, and every time you didn't know what to do with me, you went to her." "Hannah, no." She shook her head. "You don't get to tell me what you meant. I know what you did." Michael looked down. Then he said, "I never wanted to hurt you." Hannah's eyes filled. "I know." Michael looked up, and somehow that hurt him more than anger would have. Hannah wiped beneath one eye. "That's the part that scares me." His face tightened. "What?" "You didn't want to hurt me." She nodded toward the house. "And you still built all of that." Michael stood completely still. Hannah looked down at her ringless hand. "I thought I was waiting for you." His expression changed. "For what?" "For you to be ready." She looked back at him. "For the firm, for us, for whatever was happening inside your head that you couldn't talk to me about." Michael's eyes stayed on hers. "But you were ready." Hannah's voice broke. "You were just ready with her." Michael took a step toward her. She stepped back. He stopped immediately. "I can fix this." Hannah looked at him, and for the first time there was no anger in her face, only exhaustion. "You still think this is one thing?" Michael frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you think you can change something tomorrow and I'll forget what happened." "That's not what I said." "It's what you mean." He looked away. Hannah took another breath. "I don't know if you understand how many times I sat beside you and felt you leave without going anywhere." Michael closed his eyes. That was the first thing she had said that seemed to reach him somewhere deeper. When he opened them, his voice was quieter. "What do you want me to do?" For months, Hannah had wanted him to ask that question. Now it sounded almost unbearable. She looked at him. "I don't know." Michael went still. "I need to leave." "Hannah, not with you." His face fell. "Then who?" "My mom." Michael looked toward the house. Hannah stopped him. "Please don't make me explain this again tonight." He looked back at her, and something in her voice made him lower his hand. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Hannah turned toward the front door. Michael's face changed. She was going back inside, but not for him. She opened the door and walked into the house. The room went quiet again. Hannah crossed the hallway without looking at anyone. She found her mother near the dining room. Her mother looked at Hannah's face, then at Hannah's empty hand. Hannah didn't explain. She simply said, "Can you take me home?" Her mother nodded immediately. No questions, no hesitation. Hannah walked past the table, past the ring still lying beside her untouched dessert. She did not pick it up. Behind her, Michael said nothing. And this time, Hannah left without him 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. Michael still woke each morning, expecting to hear Hannah moving around the house. Instead, he reached for his phone before he was fully awake, checking for a message that usually wasn't there. Hannah had not come home. Lauren waited until the office was empty before she said anything. Michael was at his desk, staring at the same proposal he had been reading for several minutes. She closed the door behind her. He looked up. "Everything okay?" Lauren didn't answer right away. That alone made him sit back. For years, silence between them had never been uncomfortable. If anything, Michael had trusted it. He could sit across from Lauren without filling every pause. Now she stood on the other side of the desk with her arms folded. "You've been avoiding me." Michael looked down at the papers. "I've been busy." Lauren gave a small nod. "Okay." The way she said it made him look up again. She pulled out the chair across from him but didn't sit. "I know when you're busy." Michael's jaw tightened. "Lauren, no, just answer me." He waited. "What changed?" Michael looked away. There was too much he could have said. Thanksgiving, Hannah's ring on the plate, the drive home without her, the weeks since then. Instead, he said, "Things are complicated." Lauren stared at him. They were complicated before. He had no answer. She finally sat down. "You used to call me when you were upset." Michael said nothing. "You used to tell me when something was wrong before I even had to ask." Still nothing. "And now I have to schedule a meeting to get 10 minutes alone with you." Michael leaned back. "I'm trying to fix my marriage." Lauren's expression changed. The words seemed to hurt her. He noticed, and for a second, Michael felt something close to guilt. Then Lauren looked down at her hands. "Do you know what I've been trying to understand?" Michael waited. "Why you trusted me with everything for years if you never thought it would matter this much." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" Lauren looked up. "You know what I'm talking about." "No, I don't." She gave a quiet laugh, but there was nothing amused in it. "Of course you don't." Michael sat forward. "Lauren, I'm serious." She looked toward the closed door, then back at him. "You called me when you got the promotion." Michael went still. "You called me when you were thinking about leaving your job." "Lauren." "You called me when you were unhappy at home." His face tightened. She continued. "You told me things you said you couldn't tell Hannah." "I never said that. You didn't have to." The room became quiet. Lauren swallowed. "I knew when you were scared." Michael stared at her. "I knew when you were angry." Her voice was shaking now. "I knew when you were questioning yourself." He looked away. Lauren leaned back in the chair. "And I kept telling myself it was friendship because you kept calling it friendship." Michael said nothing, but it didn't feel like every other friendship. His eyes returned to her. Lauren looked down at her hands again. "I kept telling myself it would pass." Michael didn't speak. Then Thanksgiving happened. He went still. Lauren looked up. "And I realized something." Michael's face tightened. "What?" "I wasn't jealous of your marriage." He frowned. Lauren swallowed. "I was jealous of the part of you I never got to have." The words seemed to catch Michael completely off guard. "Lauren," she looked at him, "I love you." Michael went completely still. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Michael looked toward the closed office door, then back at Lauren. For the first time, he understood why the silence between them no longer felt safe. Whatever they had been before, they could not simply return to it now. "Lauren, I know. No, I never—" "You never what?" He stopped. "I never encouraged this." Lauren looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You never physically pursued me." Michael stared at her. But that's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Her eyes filled. She looked down briefly, then back at him. Why did you keep coming to me with the things you couldn't bring home? Michael opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Lauren's voice softened. You made me emotionally necessary. He looked away. You made me the first call. The promotion, the arguments, the fears, the business. Lauren continued. I knew when you were unhappy. Michael's jaw tightened. I knew when you were afraid you were making the wrong decision. He said nothing. I helped you imagine your future. That one landed differently. Michael looked at her. Lauren wiped beneath one eye. And then you expected me to believe none of that was supposed to matter to me. Michael's voice was low. I never wanted to hurt you either. Lauren gave a small, broken smile. I know. The words hit him harder than he expected. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Michael looked at her differently. Not as the person he had called. Not as the person who always understood. Not as the partner who had helped him build something. As someone who had been changed by his choices. He had spent years asking himself whether he had crossed a line. Now, for the first time, he understood that the line had not been one moment. It had been a direction, one conversation, then another, one call instead of another, one part of himself given away at a time. He looked at Lauren. I didn't know. Lauren nodded slowly. That's the problem. Michael sat back. For years he had believed intention protected him. He had never planned an affair, never touched her, never promised her a life. But none of that changed what he had built, and for the first time Michael could see it from somewhere outside himself. The problem was not that Lauren had suddenly wanted too much. The problem was that he had spent years giving her a place in his life and refusing to admit how much space it had become. Michael did not call Lauren that night. For the first time in years he had no idea what he could say to her. He drove home late. The house was dark when he pulled into the driveway. Hannah's car was gone. Her coat was gone too. A few weeks earlier he might have noticed those things and told himself she was still angry. Now he understood that anger had not been the only thing between them. She had been building a life without him. Michael stood in the kitchen for several minutes without turning on the light. Then he took out his phone. Hannah's name was still near the top of his messages. He opened their conversation. For a long time he only looked at it. There were messages from before Thanksgiving. Are you coming home tonight? Can we talk when you get here? I know you're tired. I just don't want us to keep pretending everything is okay. Michael scrolled. There were more messages. Some he had answered. Some he had answered hours later. Some with words that now looked painfully small. I'm busy. We'll talk later. You're reading too much into this. Michael sat down at the kitchen table. He remembered Hannah sitting across from him there years earlier, talking about his future, asking questions, challenging him, believing in him before anyone else had. And suddenly, something Lauren had said returned to him. Why did you keep coming to me with the things you couldn't bring home? Michael closed his eyes. Because Lauren had become easier. That was the answer. Not because Hannah was impossible to talk to. Not because he had stopped loving his wife. Lauren had simply become the person who knew where he was emotionally without requiring him to explain how he got there. He could call her in the middle of frustration and start talking. He did not have to begin with, something is wrong with me. He did not have to admit he was scared. He did not have to tell Hannah that he was unhappy before he understood why. Lauren already knew the language of his uncertainty, and because she knew it, he kept choosing her. The thought made Michael sick. He had always believed Hannah was asking him to choose between two people. She wasn't. She had been asking him to stop outsourcing the parts of their marriage that were difficult. Michael looked at his phone again. He started typing. I'm sorry. He deleted it. Too small. I understand now. He deleted that too. Did he? Not completely. Michael put the phone down. For the first time since Hannah left, he understood that wanting forgiveness was not the same thing as deserving access to her. So he didn't call. Instead, he opened his laptop. The business proposal sat on the screen. Lauren's name was on nearly every page, the company they had built together. Michael stared at the title for a long time. Then he closed it. The next morning, Lauren was already at the office when he arrived. She looked up when he came in. Neither of them smiled. Morning, she said. Morning. Michael walked past her desk, then stopped. Lauren waited. He turned back. We need to talk about the company. Her expression tightened. Michael knew she understood why before he said another word. Not today, she said quietly. I think it has to be today. Lauren looked at him. You're going to take it away from me? Michael shook his head. No, but you're thinking about changing something. He said nothing. Lauren stood. I helped build this. I know. I made decisions based on what we were building. I know. Her face changed. Then don't stand there and make me feel like I'm suddenly a problem you need to remove. Michael looked at her. That was not what he wanted. But he also knew that after yesterday, pretending nothing had changed would be another lie. I'm not saying you are the problem. Lauren folded her arms. Then what are you saying? Michael took a breath. I don't know what the right thing is anymore. The honesty of it seemed to stop her. He continued, I built this company with you while my marriage was falling apart. Lauren looked down. I let us become too dependent on each other. Her eyes lifted. Us? Michael nodded. Yes. The word surprised him. Not you. Not Lauren. Us. I don't know how to separate what we built professionally from everything I refuse to see personally. Lauren's eyes filled. For a moment she looked as if she wanted to argue. Then she said quietly, So you're asking me to leave? Michael immediately shook his head. No. Lauren stared at him. But you're asking me to stay somewhere you don't trust yourself with me. Michael went still. The office seemed to get quieter. Lauren's voice broke slightly. Do you understand what that feels like? Michael looked at her. She waited. And he had no answer. Not because he disagreed, because for the first time, he understood exactly what she meant. She had built a company with him, confided in him, loved him. And now the same realization that was forcing him to look honestly at his marriage was forcing him to look at her like a danger. Lauren looked away. I don't want to be that. Michael's face tightened. You're not. Aren't I? He said nothing. That was answer enough. Lauren sat back down slowly. Michael remained where he was. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, I'm not asking you to leave. Lauren looked up. I'm asking us to stop pretending this can go back to what it was. She held his gaze. Michael swallowed. Because it can't. Neither of them moved. The company was still there. The work still had to be done. But the relationship they had quietly built around it was gone. And for the first time, both of them understood that whatever happened next would have to be built differently. Michael did not contact Hannah for another 4 days. Not because he had stopped thinking about her. He thought about her constantly. But every time he picked up his phone, he remembered the look on her face outside his parents' house. Not angry. Tired. She had spent months trying to explain herself to him. He had finally understood enough to want another conversation. And now, he understood why that was not the same as being entitled to one. On the 5th day, Hannah called. Michael stared at her name on the screen. For a second, he couldn't move. Then he answered. Hello? Hannah. Her voice was quiet. Hi. He closed his eyes. Hi. Neither of them said anything. Michael had imagined this moment so many times that he had somehow forgotten silence was possible. Finally, Hannah spoke. I'm at my mom's. I know. I'm not calling because I'm ready to come home. I know. Another pause. Then she said, I'm calling because we need to talk about what happens next. Michael sat down. Okay. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Are you? He understood the question. Not are you available? Are you ready to hear something you don't want to hear without turning it into another conversation about what you meant? Michael looked down at his hands. Yes. Hannah let out a slow breath. I talked to someone. Michael's stomach tightened. A lawyer? Yes. He closed his eyes. Hannah continued. I haven't decided anything. Michael opened them. But I needed to know what my options were. I understand. The words sounded different now. He meant them. Hannah was silent. Then she said, Do you? Michael looked toward the window. Outside his office, Lauren was at her desk. For the first time since they had started the company, Michael understood that he could not keep one life separated from the consequences of the other. Yes, he said quietly. I think I'm starting to. Hannah didn't answer. Michael took a breath. There are things I need to tell you. Her voice changed immediately. Are you going to explain yourself? No. That stopped her. I'm going to answer you. The silence that followed was different. Hannah said, Okay. Michael leaned back. I spoke to Lauren. Hannah did not say anything. I know you don't want details you didn't ask for. No. She told me she loves me. Hannah's breath caught. Michael heard it. For a moment, he almost rushed to explain. Then he stopped himself. She said I made her emotionally necessary to me. Hannah was quiet. Michael looked down. And she was right. Still nothing. I kept telling myself nothing happened because I never meant for anything to happen. Hannah's voice was low. And now? Michael swallowed. Now I know that doesn't matter as much as I thought it did. The words seemed to leave him empty. He continued. I let her become the person I went to with things I should have been bringing to you. Hannah didn't interrupt. I built part of my future with her while telling you I wasn't ready to build it. Her silence changed. Michael could hear it. Not forgiveness, pain. The kind that came when someone finally confirmed the thing you had been trying not to believe. I should have told you sooner, he said. Yes, I should have listened when you told me something was wrong. Yes, I should have understood that you weren't asking me to choose between you and Lauren. Hannah was quiet. You were asking me to choose what kind of husband I was going to be. Michael stopped. He had not planned to say that, but once the words came out, he knew they were true. For the first time, Hannah spoke with something close to anger. And what did you choose? Michael closed his eyes. There was no answer that could protect him. For a long time? Yes. He opened his eyes. I chose what was easier. The line went silent. Michael let it. Then Hannah said, That's honest. He nodded even though she couldn't see him. It should have been. Hannah was quiet for a long time. Finally she said, What are you going to do? Michael looked through the glass wall of his office. Lauren was gathering her things. She looked up. Their eyes met. Neither of them smiled. Michael turned away. I don't know everything yet. Hannah waited. But I know I can't ask you to come back while I keep living exactly the way I was living before. Her breathing changed slightly. So what does that mean? It means I'm stepping back. From Lauren. From pretending I can separate Lauren from the company, and from pretending either of us can work the way we used to. Hannah said nothing. Michael continued. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm going to figure it out without asking you to wait for me. That silence lasted longer. Then Hannah said, Okay. Michael sat forward. That doesn't mean I'm asking you to forgive me. I know. Or come home. I know. He closed his eyes. I just wanted you to know. Hannah's voice softened. For the first time, you're telling me something before you've already made the decision. Michael didn't move. The words hurt, but they also mattered. I guess I should have done that a long time ago. Yes, he almost smiled. Almost. Then Hannah said, Michael? Yeah? I don't know what happens to us. His chest tightened. I know. And I don't want you making these changes just so you can tell me you fixed it. Michael looked down. I won't. She was quiet. I hope that's true.
So do I.
For the first time during the call, Hannah let out the smallest breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Then she said, Goodbye, Michael. He closed his eyes. Goodbye, Hannah. The call ended. Michael kept the phone in his hand. He did not call back. A few minutes later, there was a knock on his office door. Lauren stood there. Do you have a minute? Michael looked at her. For years, the answer would have been immediate. Of course, he would have made time, moved a meeting, closed the door, let her sit across from him and tell him whatever she needed to say. Now he looked at the clock, then at the proposal on his desk, then back at Lauren. Not right now, Lauren nodded. Something passed across her face, hurt, then understanding. She began to step away. Lauren. She stopped and turned back. Michael looked at her for a moment. This was the part he would once have avoided, the difficult conversation, the decision he could make later, the truth that might make someone angry with him. We need to find someone else to handle the parts of the company we've been handling together. Lauren went still. She understood immediately. You already decided. Michael shook his head. No. Her expression tightened. Then what are you saying? Michael took a breath. This time I'm telling you before I do. For several seconds, Lauren simply looked at him. Then her expression softened slightly. Not because she was happy, not because the decision didn't hurt, but because she understood what he was trying to do. That's different, she said quietly. Michael nodded. It has to be. Lauren stood there for another moment. Then she looked down. When she finally looked back at him, there was sadness in her eyes, but there was something else too, understanding. Okay, she said. She walked away. Michael watched her go. Then he turned back to his desk. Hannah was still gone. Nothing had been repaired. Nothing had been forgiven. The company would have to change. Lauren would have to change her place inside it. And Michael still had no idea whether Hannah would ever come back. But for the first time, he had made a difficult choice without waiting for someone else to force him into it. And he had told the truth before the decision was already made. Michael never physically cheated, but he gave another woman the parts of himself his wife kept asking for. So tell me honestly, was Hannah right to leave, or do you think Michael deserved another chance before she walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story made you think differently about emotional boundaries in a relationship, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.